I'm Jerika. I use she, her.
I'm Embers Tide, and I use he, him.
And I'm Air. I also use he, him, and this is Insight Check, where we delve into the dungeon of your bad decisions to retrieve the treasure of wisdom.
Your decisions really weren't bad, they were just disappointing.
We love you, we don't love the decisions you've made.
That's good.
Speak for yourself.
I remember that one.
We don't love you or the decisions you made. It's really just a whole parcel of bad, isn't it? You should think about what you've done.
I want to let everybody out there know we're playing some games these days. We're real players up in the ICP Discord. And I want to invite anyone listening to come and play. We have Jackbox available. We have Codenames available. And we play usually once a week or more. So if you are interested in playing some games online through Discord, just let us come to the Discord. You can find it through our Twitter account, which is Insight Check Pod.
With Insight Check Pod, it's never been easier.
It's never been easier.
And it's never getting easier, so come now.
Whiplash. You want to come for the throne? I'm right here, sitting upon it, polishing.
Or lose to me and Drawful.
I really should clean up around this throne. It's been kind of dirty since the whole quarantine thing.
Dirty is the head that wears the crown.
Right.
No, I think it's dirty since Embers became the king.
Yeah,
I've heard what he's done. Upon the throne, if you
Did I say Embers? I meant Air.
Oh,
Since Air became
Embers.
I was going along with it 100%.
I already referenced Caligula in the game of TKO you pronounced, but
no, you
my
have to
rule
say
would
you have
be
to say the whole line.
Caligula did nut and Ron.
Oh boy.
No.
N-U-T-T-I-N apostrophe.
Oh.
Word crimes, all of them.
Listen.
That's not a game. That's just something that happens.
We should get down on all fours.
Nope,
Speaking of
I
dirty,
refuse.
okay, I'll start. I'm gonna get down on all fours and make my way into the dungeon, crawling. For this segment, we call a dungeon crawl.
It's a dungeon, but we ain't gonna make you crawl in it.
We ain't gonna make you crawl in it.
Today we're all gonna crawl in it, and it's gonna be good.
Walking dungeon.
I don't actually have a dungeon crawl now that I think about it. I'm just down here.
Okay, so I kind of did a dungeon crawl with telling everyone that we like do games and stuff.
Yeah.
So Air, I don't know if you want to talk about the character creator thing.
I will cede my time to the representative from Jerika stand.
Okay. It's Jerikoslovakia. Jerikoslovakia.
America.
Not to be confused with South Jerikesumberg.
Sounds delicious, like a Mediterranean honey and nut based dessert.
Don't you dare desertualize me.
I am an entree, god damn you.
I am an entree. And I deserve respect.
Diminish me with your saccharine archetypes.
I want to talk about Makauka. And I'm sure if you're listening, you've heard about this, but I've had firsthand experience and I know what's up. Okay. So if you search Makauka OC Maker, that's MAKOWKA, you will get a link from Picrew, PICREW. This character style generator is in Japanese, but what's great is once you get to the designer part, it's all pictures. You don't even need to worry about it. Just pick which chin you want, okay? No problem. No words needed.
It really is just that easy.
It is.
I'm doing it right now.
So all you have to do basically is once you Google that shit, is like click the first 3 pink buttons that you see and then you're in. And I love it. I'm in a new game these days, a Firefly game, and I was able to make my character with this generator. And this I was apprised of this generator by Kate, and it's great. It's changed my life.
Internet daughter extraordinaire, Kate.
This is phenomenal.
Yes, it's really cute.
I think I just accidentally created myself when I was 13, had long hair, and was really into industrial music.
The best thing about this, I have to say, is the randomize button. So I'm going to randomize somebody right now, and I will show it to y'all.
That sounds like the next big makeover show. Jerika is the randomizer.
Oh, it's a keeper.
There are extensive options regarding hair.
Let me go ahead. Yeah, it's got front hair. It's got middle hair. It's got back hair, not on your back. And then it's got side hair.
Right. And for each, a plethora of options.
Have you been spending enough time thinking about your side hair?
No, I haven't. According to this OC maker. My new OC. Rainbows McSheely.
Yo, this is amazing. I'm very impressed.
They've definitely got a style of their own. I would say, Jerika, on a scale of 0 to 5 fashions, how fashion is this character designer?
Fashions. Well, let me respond to you with a picture answer. Which might elucidate my feelings about
you were supposed to circle the small, box with a 2B pencil, but whatever. Well, I guess we're taking pictures now. Education is up in the air.
There's
Boom!
The
Wow.
That's amazing.
Wow.
And you know what else is amazing? The podcast listening experience when people are answering questions in the form of images posted on Discord.
Let me use words. So the answer is a green goblin with pointy ears sticking their tongue out with a fabulous beard, orange eyebrows, brown hair with a flop or the side, 2 space buns and some business out the back, a blue sad face sticker on their cheek, probably covering some sort of scar.
I was gonna say.
And then strawberry earrings, big ol' round glasses, and maybe a sport t-shirt where they're gonna go do some sports.
Joyous.
Oh, did I mention the background? It's
amazing.
Pink, purple, and blue, and it's got bubbles on it, and also sparkles.
It's pretty amazing.
It's a pretty thorough answer, I think.
So, folks, if you're out there looking to create some incredible portraiture at the touch of a finger, this is a super cool tool.
Agreed.
6 fashions out of 5. Cha-ching! All right.
Nice. Excellent dungeon crawl. Excellent.
Embers, do
I love it
you
already.
have any crawling in you this evening?
So I've been crawling. I've been crawling a little bit more recently, of late. I am crawling back into a writing project that I started a year and a half ago, roughly. So it was inspired by actually something that came up on our Discord channel, or a precursor to it. I can't remember which. And I've been watching some old British comedy serial shows because I was convalescing from like food poisoning or something awful. And nothing rips the Band-Aid off like British humor from the 60s. And so I was doing that.
Faulty Towers?
You can take a wafer thin mint.
All Faulty Towers,
Faulty
the entire
Towers,
thing.
I love it.
And I was like, there is a powerful precedent in the world of streaming shows that are serialized, of course. But I'm not saying this is a unique idea or anything, but I really wanted to make a serialized, semi-comedic, but also dramatic adventure series. And I was like, I have no idea how to do this. I have no discernible skills in writing. I was raised by 2 editors, and so I have a Stockholm Syndrome capability of recalling Strunk White rules, but that's about it. And so like from that, I just started like poking around on like a Google document, and I asked questions in the Discord like, where should this thing be? What do you think would be a good way to have this kind of phenomenon happen, or character or dynamic? And it was really fun. Like I got a lot of good feedback and input from everybody. And I wrote for a while, and then I stopped, as often happens, and I'm getting back into it. I've been meaning to for a while, and the portent of the annihilation of society as we know it was a great catalyst to get back in. So I have been. And I guess like one of the things that I'm toiling with right now in my mind is from a big picture perspective, like the plot narratives and the through lines of this sort of a serialized story, I like they're cool and they have to be compelling and fun and exciting. But the way what I hope to achieve is I hope to achieve some like amity and appreciation and focus on the characters so that when a party comes in to the next edition, the next adventure in this series, like they're reuniting with familiar characters, they understand the personalities of those characters, and it's sort of more character driven than event driven.
Yeah.
What I don't know.
I often fall for characters in the story and they make me come back for more, whereas like the plot will catch my interest, but it's the characters who are like, oh, what are they going to do now kind of thing. Right.
Like that's where it comes to life a little bit more to me, or that's what I want to be able to do. But as I'm doing this in the construct of like one shots in a D&D environment, I'm sort of worried about being too heavy-handed as the designer or world builder or whatever kind of name you want to give to what I'm trying to do, I guess. Like, to me, you could kind of come in and if you can make the right character summaries and give a little bit of a forcing function in the world for what the one shot is, like you could have an adventure just based on that, based on very little. But I want to build in some of that color and show how some of these recurring characters are interacting with the events of the plot that the party is also interacting with. And so the question that I wanted to ask y'all is, or ye all,
y'all.
Yes, ye old y'all. Are there examples of one-shots or examples of new worlds that you got introduced to and where there was a character that just sort of like lit your imagination up right away or over time?
So this actually reminds me of video games.
I dig that.
Yeah, so I was sucked into playing Borderlands 2 with my friends for a while. There's like the NPCs that like chill out and you see them over and over again.
Yeah.
There's sort of different types of NPCs. And what's interesting about Borderlands 2 is it's the second in the series. So there was a Borderlands regular, and the characters that you were able to play in Borderlands 1 become NPCs in Borderlands 2.
Mm-hmm. I see.
And so they're kind of given prominence in that you interact with them a lot. And like some of the first storylines are like you saving them from their reputations in some respects. So like, yeah, they're a big deal, but now they got a cult following that they're not super interested in. So like, why don't we help them out of that situation? So it's really interesting narrative to me, but it's like they're relatable because they're not like the villain that set up this cult and is like reveling in it. They dislike it. It's like the way you would react to it kind of thing. So they're very relatable in that sense. Am I answering your question at all?
You're kind of explaining how you build this sort of like impulse to come back into the game and to play the game again based on the depth of the character, right? Like the character's identity, their story, and what comes from that, like what issues from the choices they've made and what their backstory is compels the plot and compels you to experience it.
For sure. I think it's a combination of triggers in the environment and in the story that sort of show that they're important in some way and that they're very relatable through what they do.
Counterpoint.
I'm making notes.
I want to murder Claptrap.
I mean,
but you want to go like play the game sibling. To murder it. See, so you're immersed in that murderous hatred.
That's true.
That's a win.
They got me.
Stairs. I can't climb stairs. is like an in-joke with all the people I used to play Borderlands with, like Borderlands 2 with. So it's like, yeah, you don't love him because he's annoying, which is what he's supposed to be.
His name is. Right. Yeah.
But you ain't never gonna forget him.
Unforgettably irritating. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
I think the comparison you're drawing is a really good one. And I think that when you think about some of the video games that are based around the arc of one character, you're talking about like, you know, really top tier franchises and the depth to which people identify with or understand or obsess over some of those characters, big or small in the storylines, is a good example of like the interactions you have with that character as you're doing your playthrough trigger that in you as a fan of the game. Like that has to come from somewhere. You don't turn the game on and say, I'm going to pick these 3 characters and obsess about them for the foreseeable future.
You have to build a relationship. And the thing is that video games, especially Borderlands 2, do this thing where they have a sort of a pantheon from which you can choose who you like the best. So I'm super into the Siren character. And so in Borderlands 2, you can play a Siren, but then there's the Siren character from the original game as well. And so you feel this almost immediate kinship because you're, you know, part of this sort of elite group of people.
Oh, that's interesting. I like it.
Yeah, it's just some thoughts.
I like these thoughts. These are thoughts that I have just written down so that I can think on them again.
Yay.
Air, help me be a better writer.
And it works for some games and it doesn't work for other games. So,
true.
There's games that are very character driven and there's games that are plot driven. Like I think Horizon Zero Dawn is much more plot driven than anything else.
Like you have a fixed set of catalysts and that's plenty for you to react to. You have to make choices based on that, those sorts of things.
And like there are faces that you see over and over again, but they are, I don't know, I don't feel like the relationships are that deep except for the one in the beginning. And so, which is funny because it's probably the shortest relationship in the game, but it's like the deepest one. And like her sort of journey that she goes on is much more about what's happening, like much more about the story than about fostering relationships.
Not to take anything away from Aloy, because Aloy is a great character. She's very well written.
Oh yeah, it's a great game.
I think the setting, like a lot of sci-fi, the setting is really the main character of it. Or at least in terms of backstory, the setting is the primary narrative thrust. It's almost a character.
I would say there's a lot of great sci-fi that has a Scooby Squad.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of great sci-fi that's character driven too. It definitely struck me as the world being the main character and its backstory is what we're driving into. And we just need a character, still, again, a great character, but a character to be the perspective for that backstory to unfold.
Right.
So the question is really to get your thoughts on, are there any instances where someone crafted that initial set of interactions and that initial outlay of the story and the forcing function that will drive the party to start making decisions and start acting along the route of that arc that you thought were effective in a character driven kind of way? Because what I want to do is I want to kind of get a team, or give the DM the tools to get a team together, and they're dropped into this in tavern environment, and through the interactions with these recurring characters, they start to get a feel for history, personality. There is humor. There is kind of a compulsion to more understand what's going on with them, where they came from, where the setting came from, and then introduce a force function to drive the arc through adventure and encounters and conflict and puzzles and that sort of thing.
I have more thoughts.
Please, go ahead.
The way you're talking kind of like flashes this image in my mind. So sometimes in like a certain genre of movie, when you meet a certain character, their like name will flash up on the screen. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember, like the one that comes to mind, I think is like Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah.
I think there's other ones, like even like Sucker Punch. I don't know, maybe. I think it happens in music videos too. Where like you enter a room and like this person's important because their name just flashed up on the screen. Yeah, I think Kill Bill did that too. That's like that's the mechanism that like I feel like would be really effective for this scenario where it's like this person's important because their name, and now they've done like a superhero pose as well.
The thing that flashed to my mind, which this is kind of a weird pull, but when I was playing WoW, World of Warcraft, I was wow. The Wrath of the Lich King expansion was probably the one that's most beloved, and I think the reason is they already had a character to wrap the narrative around. They had this hero from games far before that had fallen to evil and had become, a force of great evil in the world. And so they already have the character set up. But what they did that was very smart is, like most MMOs, that's a guy 4 patches down the road that you find at the end of an evil dark castle, and you fight him and take his sword.
Right.
That's the MMO formula. But instead, in the leveling up process, they implemented coming into contact with the Lich King constantly. There were quest lines and whatnot where you ran aground of him and he showed you just how powerful he is and taunted you and did the whole big bad villain thing. And it really served to much better make that final, end game raid thing that much more interesting and narratively satisfying, as well as getting, your new magic pauldrons or whatever, because he was constantly there. So if I had a setting, which is, a microcosm of the overall world, every character in that bar would have a backstory tied to this character that I want to immerse the party in, much like Curse of Strahd, where there are so many tie-ins to, like, when you go and meet the Vishtani who tells your fortune, there's allusions to Strahd. When you finally go into I can't remember what the township is, the first town, everyone is talking in kind of hushed tones, he who should not be named, but it's all about how their lives have been impacted by Strahd. So you build, if you want to engross characters in the arc of another character, of a villain or what have you, it's constantly making the world center around that, the narrative center around that person in every nook and cranny you can.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that's a good point. You need to you need to continuously intersect the party with this meta catalyst, right? Because otherwise it loses a little bit of its driving force in the overall story. If it's just kind of like, oh yes, we're going to do these 20 quests and then we'll get to fight the big bad thing that we saw when the game did its load sequence animation.
If the innkeep is going to ask them to kill giant rats in the basement, Strahd better have put those giant rats there. They better only exist.
Well, they all have to be wearing little Strahd capes.
They're his pets. They got out of Ravenloft. They're running amok. That kind of thing.
Right, and then at the end of that arc, you cut scene over to Strahd reading the paper, and then his servant comes in. It's like,
not
Sir,
my
the rats. They've all been killed. Not my rats. I will get revenge on this.
The rat. Bring me the rat catchers. I shall drink them. Anyway. 5
dead rats. Oh.
Yeah, that's everything I have to say about writing, I guess.
Are there any games that you think from a role-playing game or tabletop game, worlds or story arcs, storylines that really pulled you in right away, whether or not it was around this mechanism of trying to drive it by character interactions versus larger plot events, like obvious big plot events?
Jerika already mentioned it, but Horizon Zero Dawn is definitely some of the best sci-fi storytelling I've seen in a long time. Most recently, The Expanse definitely sucked me in big time off the hop. Like the whole first season has this kind of...
It's just go, 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 go. There's like no chance
but
to
it's
like
got a
look
little bit
away.
of something for everyone.
There's a Scooby Squad.
There's a Scooby Squad. There's if you like that gritty detective noir neo-futurism Blade Runner kind of thing, there's a character and plotline for that. Yeah, there's definitely a Scooby Squad who's kind of coming together, who's trying to solve the mystery. There's a character that you never meet in current time, but all the flashbacks tie into another character's whole arc. Like, they managed to take all these disparate elements and have them come together in a cohesive way around the central tension of this whole world.
I think there's a lot of sci-fi that you could say kind of does this really well.
It's true.
Farscape. So like the premise of Farscape is that an Earth astronaut is slingshot across the universe and runs into aliens. And so you have like the core aliens that are on the ship that he runs into, and then he gets in trouble because he gets blamed for the death of the brother of one of the villains. And so now it's just like this whole race where like he's trying to like get away from like the responsibility and of like killing someone, and also to like try to get back home. And there's great characters.
That's a great example. That's a great example of there's this one huge dislocation that starts the plot overall, but that's not, in a sense, yes, the driving force. The goal is to get home and stuff, but what drives the episode and what drives the story and your emotion in it is character interactions.
Like you can label pretty much every Farscape episode as Zahn's episode or Rigel's episode or John's episode or Aaron's episode.
I know people feel that way about Firefly too.
Yeah, Firefly was going to be my other example.
I think good
There's something
call.
about family, I think. Like I think at the core of it comes down to family. So like a family has room for as many members as you need, but there's a point at which a family feels complete. And I think that if you consider that nugget of wisdom, there might be something there.
That's enough for me. I could chew on that nugget for weeks.
And then you should watch Knives Out, because that's all about family.
Everyone should watch Knives Out. Ugh. Thank y'all. That was really helpful. It's giving me a lot to think about. And this is a different way of thinking about it too. So that's also really, really, really helpful, because when you are sitting and just writing, it's critical to get outside your own head and get some other heads to complement that head.
So
So thank you, heads.
We are a service of creativity.
We're that knight from that Monty Python movie. Three-headed knight.
Hey, y'all, I was wondering if you wanted to maybe kick it old school with me. What do you say?
I think we should answer some questions.
Have asked our community
Let's do it.
the past days, weeks, months for questions. And then did we answer them? No, we did not.
No.
It's not like it's something we're committed to doing.
We don't even have a tagline. No,
Part of our
nothing.
tagline or
So
anything.
we have gone back.
We never really
through
said we were gonna.
the archives now at this point to answer those burning cues asked by the lovely people in our Discord community.
If it burns for more than 36 hours, consult a physician.
If it burns less than 36 hours, who do you consult?
A pyrotechnician.
A pyrotechnician. There we go. Make it burn more. Given the current pandemic environment in which we find ourselves, what is the best in-class system for running pen and paper RPGs virtually these days? And is there a similar system for board games? Corollary question. Please tell me there's a way to play Pandemic virtually. These are both coming from Logorial, who some of us here know quite well. So yeah, obviously Roll20, I think we've all in past kind of sang its praises.
It is widely applicable. It has character sheets for lots and lots of different games, different types of games.
Like
it has a mouse guard character sheet.
Spoilers.
Hint, hint, nudge, nudge.
I know that Jay has gotten very into Multiverse recently, which was doing a Kickstarter, but then got some funding by means of like a startup kind of thing. I don't quite know how it works. Like
an angel investor type
yeah. They pick them up, and it looks to be definitely in that virtual tabletop space, and definitely has some very cool art assets going for it. They're going to have an online store for people who want to make custom, tokens and battle maps and what have you.
Yeah, man. If they could bring that over the finish line, that is going to bring some heat.
It looks very cool. The thing I like the most is that it has like the ability to encode the rules of a system and load them in like a series of punch cards into it. So like Roll20, you're basically depending on the DM and the players to know the rules in order for things to be, calculated correctly, and how much damage does this do and what's your AC. But if there is a general purpose interface for loading those sorts of things in for tabletop RPGs, that would be like a huge time saver to like, I click a button and I found out if I hit and how much damage I do, and no one had to guess at, did you have this spell up and were you concentrating and blah, 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 blah. That would be a big win in my book.
Totally.
I think Fantasy Grounds also does some of this as well. And D&D Beyond has some functionality with D&D, obviously.
Mm-hmm. I know we've covered this in a previous episode not too long ago, so don't want to belabor the point. But really all you need is any sort of, if you are playing face-to-face and you want to move online, Skype, Discord, your whatever penchant you have for whatever VoIP-based, voice communication tool, just get on there and yak with your friends, and you can do D&D just like you were doing if you were all sitting around a table.
Yeah.
I didn't dungeon crawl because there was the question, is there a similar system for board games?
Yeah, that was interesting.
And can I play Pandemic virtually? Now, unfortunately, the site I'm going to recommend doesn't have Pandemic, but this is a site that is dedicated to taking German board games, and as any board game aficionado knows, like, Germany is to board games what France is to wine. They produce only the best. The terroir is just right in German soil for creating board games. But this site, yucata.de, yucata.de, has like dozens upon dozens of German-based board games, all that can be played online. They can be played synchronously or asynchronously, completely for free. My wife bought a game called Hey, That's My Fish, which is a little strategy game where you control a group of penguins collecting fish, and as you collect them, the board disappears. So you got to kind of strategize around like, how can I get the most fish versus how can I cut off the other player from getting fish by destroying the ice flows. And I was like, man, it'd be so cool to play this online. And on the site where you can totally play it online for free. So yucata.de, check it out. Tons of board games on there that you can play. Just, take a turn and wait for the other person to take a turn, and it'll notify you when they do, or you can set up a time to play live.
There is also colonist.io, which, if you like Settlers of Catan, is basically Catan twin online.
Our go-to for gaming in our Discord, horsepaste.com, is an online version of Codenames, if you're a Codenames fan. Suffice it to say, there's many options out there if you are a board game aficionado who is needing their fix.
I really like Elder.
I did enjoy Elder Scrolls too.
I bought
You and Jenna
Skyrim at
Marbles.
least 3 times.
Yeah, Elder Sign is a cooperative sort of trick getting game, if you will, and it's Cthulhu mythos based. There is an app for that. It is not multiplayer, which I know isn't quite what we want, but the app really, when I was obsessed with it like 3 years ago, really did a good job replicating the game. And so, if that's something you're into, check it out.
I also Virtual Tabletop, which is available over Steam, which has Tabletop Simulator, rather, available through Steam, which is as it comes. It is basically a 3D table that you can customize as you wish with various gaming accoutrements. And there's a active community of folks developing packages you can just plug into it to play D&D or play Yahtzee or play whatever you want. I've been wanting to run Dread online just because I love narrative first, mechanics light storytelling. thingies, and basically using Jenga as a way to simulate fear or tension or anxiety.
Oh, yeah.
Is fun.
Yeah.
But how the hell do you play Jenga online? You can play Jenga in Tabletop Simulator. So I was thinking about maybe picking that up for that purpose. Granted, every time I say I want to run Dread, everyone says, no, scary bad. And they don't want to run, they don't want to play Dread. So we'll see.
I think there's a way to do Dread that's, funny.
Yeah, not
scary.
Yeah. More like a Buffy episode as opposed to like Psycho Killer in the Woods.
I've never played this game.
Will Wheaton did it on tabletop. I would suggest everyone go on YouTube and look that up.
Which was very like Deliverance / Friday the 13th kind of dealy boo. Let's move on. We have a question from, am I getting this right? Jerika? Jerika.
Who is that?
And this individual, this woman of mystery asks, are backgrounds important in D&D?
And I asked because once you click through on D&D Beyond to your character sheet, nowhere in that character sheet is backgrounds listed anywhere.
Really?
The background that you picked. It might be, it isn't, I don't think it's even in the features area.
Oh, man.
Nope. Nope, I don't think it is.
So D&D Beyond says that backgrounds are important.
Does it even list like the feature you get with the background at all?
I don't think I don't think it does.
Right, because there's like a mechanical implication to that choice.
I mean, they definitely give you some skills. The problem is I always go custom background and I never pick the flavor feature that each one of them gives you, like which one I want. So I'm terrible at it. I'm the worst person to talk about this because I consider backgrounds as a good way to pick up 2 skills or 2 languages.
Yeah, which means that it's just very mechanical for you.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like my character doesn't have this skill that I obviously want. And there has to be some mechanic because for some reason they didn't want to default it. Here is,
maybe 2% of the games I've played, someone has been like, oh, I'm an acolyte, so I can find a house of repose for us or whatever.
And whenever that happens, I'm like, I look at that player like they are freaking MacGyver. And like, no, I just picked
oh, you have that tool.
I'm like, how does this, you did what? And I'm like, oh, the language thing does that?
Yeah.
I have used a background feature exactly once in our Inc. campaign that we all played with Jay so long ago. We went to Waterdeep and I was like, I have it on my sheet and I've never used it. I'm going to use this I know a guy thing that I had where it was like, my background was criminal. So I was like, oh, I know someone here. So as soon as Jay was like, so how do you? I know a guy. He was like, okay, chill the hell out. Anyway, but it worked. He let me know the guy, and me and the guy gave me the thing that I needed. I can't remember what it was, but I knew him. Yeah. I knew the crap out of him.
So, I mean, I feel like it might be easier just to give people 2 free skills when they're picking their class. But there's been people who have said backgrounds are good for like beginners. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I believe that.
The thing I liked about Ryutama so much when I played it is the backgrounds in D&D were kind of the classes in Ryutama. Like whatever your job or profession was before you became a paladin.
But farmer isn't a background.
Farmer isn't a background in D&D?
I don't think so. Fisher is because of Inc., I think.
To D&D Beyond, it's never been easier to be shocked by something.
D&D Beyond.
I mean, like, because the classic conceit is like you were just a farmer before you picked up a sword. It's not here. Folk hero. So perhaps as a farmer, miner, servant, shepherd, woodcutter. So they kind of blocked it all into folk hero, I guess. But I know
all farmers are folk heroes in one way or another.
No, you have to but then there's like sailor, which is like, yeah, that's a job somebody could have had. Mm-hmm. I think there needs to be like more professions in the background.
I agree. 60, get on that shit, Watsy. Shall we move on?
Yeah.
I think here's
I'm satisfied.
Here's one that Haley wanted a solid answer to. Why can't I cast sleep on myself in real life?
It's a good question. Who asked this question?
This is from Geronimus. Geronimus? I'm going to say Geronimus.
I mean, it's a really good question. I think the implication is that if you can cast sleep on yourself, all other spells are available to you in real life, which is terrifying.
That is a fair point.
I don't want to be crowned of madness, out of the blue and start stabbing my cat, for example.
And I wouldn't want my cat to get crowned of madness and start attacking me.
Nope.
Are narcoleptics wild magic sorcerers who only know one spell?
No. Magic isn't real. No, I'm just kidding.
I need this trick.
The one direction you could go with the answer to this question is you're just really bad at spellcasting. You need to practice. You need to get down the ritual, the components, and all of that stuff.
If anyone's watched
Onward...
so
the ritual and the components for sleep are what you might expect.
Right. Warm milk, melatonin,
maybe get
chewy
off your
gummy.
phone an hour before you go to bed.
Right.
No blue light.
Limit the blue light.
Yeah.
Right. Relaxation
maybe pick a specific
music.
Time every day to go to bed.
Right. White noise app. Yeah, it's just you got to master the components.
I'm speaking as a human that struggles with sleep as well.
Yeah.
I believe Matt answered it tongue-in-cheekly, as Matt often does, with, you got too much HP. Just hit yourself till you pass out.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking outside the box. Kind of like it.
Wonder how many hours you get if you knock yourself out.
I mean, to be fair, as a colloquialism, we tell people to do that an awful lot. Hey, knock yourself out.
True.
Do you mind if I hit myself with this bat? Knock yourself out.
Knock yourself out.
Here's another one from Geronimus. Your players maneuver themselves into a situation that almost certainly will end in a TPK. Yet you don't want the game to end. So how do you dice it?
I guess it's sort of situation dependent. You always have the option of divine intervention, like Deus Ex Machina kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You can introduce a new character or a new... you can always have a last minute shocking twist sort of thing. It might feel a little bit hokey or rote, but you can do it. You can also tell everybody to roll up an extra character before they start, but we're probably a bit late for that. I think if you're running the game and you're looking around the table or talking to folks between the games, and there's this compulsion that like, this game is great, don't want it to end, want to keep going. I mean, everything should have a conclusion. Like, if no book should go forever. But it's okay to listen to that and to say, look, we're gonna kind of have a do-over. We're gonna have this divine intervention moment. We'll all know what it's about.
Flashback. Like, what you could do is actually have the TPK go down, and then after the deed is done, as the DM, the all-powerful God, you can say, "Oh, but that's not how it went. That's not how it went. Happen. Did done happen."
Good.
And then go back to a time where there were choices left, or introduce new choices the second time around. And then it's like, okay, why did that happen? Like, there's some new questions now.
You can kind of get a little Donnie Darko on it.
Well, I was going to say, as someone who's been rampantly watching Final Fantasy VII Remake Let's Plays and tweeting about them without ever having played the game,
Jay's going to cut this
whole
section.
section's going to be cut because he is sick. Well,
Bring
who
it
do you
on,
think
Jay.
I've been going on and on about it to in DMs? One of the things they do is they have this force of like these apparitions, these ghost-like creatures that swirl around called whispers, and they start taking artistic liberties. They kill characters that they didn't kill before, or they save characters that died in the original game. And every time this happens, these apparitions show up and reverse that character's fortune. They're agents of fate. And essentially the game ends, because this is the first chapter of this game, with the characters going and destroying fate as a force. And it is literally a meta insertion of the game creators saying, hey, we are going to take, artistic liberties with this series going forward. And they actually made it a plot element in the story, which is so delectably meta. I was just like, yum, 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 yum.
That is pretty beautiful in terms of doing that kind of meta mindfuck kind of thing. That's amazing. That's really well.
You
well
literally kill fate as the last boss of the game, such that the rest of the game can be free of the expectations of the game it's based on. That is some fucking next level ish, and I like it.
So is it like your TPK death gives you the opportunity to kill?
Wouldn't it be cool
death?
Exactly if like after the TPK, you all awake. You aren't who you were before. You know, like you could totally do it, but you have all your memories. You're all revenants or something exactly like you're talking about, Jerika. You could rewind time, or the gods have chosen you to continue onwards as, you know, the same souls instantiated in different bodies, or you made a deity who's like, you're the closest who's ever come to facing this. I need to know what's so special about you. Like there's tons of ways narratively you could spin it.
So at the DM's discretion, if they want to have a penalty or a consequence for whatever brought the party to this moment of TPK, sort of switching to this afterlife sort of alternative universe or retelling or alternate timeline or flashback does give you the chance to make some interesting decisions about what is on the other side of that. And it could still bring home the feeling of loss and consequence to the party who still wants to keep playing, and you who still wants to keep driving the story forward. You could change the whole flavor of it and give them a new sort of set of motivations and drive from there on.
To quote James T. Kirk, let them die. And then let them come back as something awesome.
Sure. I like that.
Jerika, you just let me hang out there, didn't you? I did it for you.
I mean, Kirk and I aren't on the best terms.
I mean, he is kind of a douche.
It's a long beef.
Let's do one last question. What do you say?
Sure.
When your game ends because of other people or because of other reasons that
ain't that always the way?
How do you
very
avoid
ambiguous
feeling
statement.
that you've done something wrong?
Well, first of all, I don't want to give anybody the excuse to think they're infallible and never do anything wrong and it's always someone else's fault. But I think it's maybe still a fair question.
Michael Wayne. I like this question because I was somewhat recently in a campaign where this kind of happened. I think we were playing and we got to a point where I think some players were feeling frustrated over how the arc of the story was going. And one player voiced it and a few other players piped in. And I was one of them. And I was just kind of saying like, DM, I've had fun, but this just isn't really my steez. I hope that's okay. I'm having trouble keeping up and I'm finding myself not invested. And so thank you so much for everything you've done, but I'm going to step away. And I felt like shit and still kind of do about it because this DM is a lovely DM and a great DM. It's just, I think the way I play and run the game and the way they play and run the game are stylistically different, and that's okay. But it just took me a long time to get there. And I really think there's something to be said for, like, just because two people don't click at a table doesn't mean anyone's wrong. The takeaway is really like, to avoid feeling bad, realize it wasn't you and it wasn't them. It was just, they have different expectations for what's fun in D&D.
I think it might be sort of a maturity that you gain over time. And I know that doesn't help if you're in a situation where that's happening to you. Like, your feelings are your feelings, of course. I don't know. Like, I would be very comfortable saying those two or that one. I'm projecting that maybe like a relationship has fallen apart and now things are bad. Or maybe the DM's just like, I'm too busy. I gotta work to feed my family. So I can't do this anymore. Cry.
The turnip market is not what it used to be.
If you're feeling bad, it might be that someone else is making you feel that way. So sort of understanding that might be a mechanism, or you don't understand exactly what happened. And so there's a lot of ambiguity there. So it might be the case that you might need a little bit more information to get closure. And it's troubling that word. Closure. But to understand what actually happened, you don't. If you're feeling that it's your fault, but it's clearly not your fault, there might be some communication that you need someone else to give you.
That's what I talked to the DM after, and the DM was very understanding and was like, listen, this is a game we play for fun. If you're not having fun, it's not like you're going to be like, no, you stay here and you be bored. Like,
you committed to this, damn it. Now you're going to stay. You're going to see it through. You are miserable the whole time.
And the DM moved on and ran other campaigns, and I moved on and ran other campaigns, and everyone's hunky-dory.
And that's important to remember. There will always be more campaigns. There will always be more stories. There will always be more characters and more groups and more tables. And there are a lot of different flavors of food out there, and you don't have to eat all of them. You can pick your favorites. You can find the flavors that you like. And that can just be the stuff that you like, and that's okay.
And you can blame the sweet potatoes if it's the sweet potatoes' fault.
Yes.
Who the fuck are you walking in here with marshmallows on your head? Get the fuck out of here.
Right. Why can't you cook faster, huh?
And
if someone's making you feel like it's your fault when it's sweet potatoes' fault.
Do not let sweet potato gaslight you.
Boy, bye.
Conversely, if you're a sweet potato and people are giving you grief for being a sweet potato, be like, look, I don't need this. I am what I am. I'm going to go someplace that appreciates me.
And to vor this Boros, to bring it all back around, if you are looking to play games and find people to play D&D with, consider hitting up our little Discord community. Links in our Twitter profile. And we'd love to see you. Come and knock on our door. We've been waiting for you.
We got them good games.
Nice. Thank you all so much for joining us for this episode of Inside Check. If you enjoyed hanging out with us here, as we've said before, please stop by our Discord, follow us on Twitter, leave a comment, and if you're feeling extra juicy, give us a good rating on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast, because we appreciate it and it helps other people find us and hopefully find some entertainment and some light in these dark, boring times. Thanks also for asking Q's in our Discord. They literally made the show today possible. We really appreciate the Discord community and, the games we play together, the projects, the spoilers we talk about, the updates and the laughs. It's a really nice place to be. So thank you for making it that way. We'd like to thank Vince Vept, as always, for our amazing theme music. And we'd like to thank the stellar Bernadette Meeker, Burnham on Twitter with 3 M's.
Not 2.
No.
Not 4.
I like to think of them as the more famous 3M in this universe.
I love it. Yes, the more famous 3M. Yes.
For our social branding, our adorable faces, because without you, we'd have no faces, and that'd be awkward. Answering your cues from our collective A's, this
was
Insight
Check.
You thought the podcast was over, but it's me, Jay. And I would like to point out that I was actually the DM in Air's story about not wanting to play D&D anymore. Not sure why he was so cagey about that. We've talked about it like 6 or 7 times on this podcast, and everything's good, so I don't know. Also, I did want to point out that they were completely wrong about D&D Beyond, because if you go to your character sheet, you go to the description tab. Under that, you'll see background, where your background will be displayed. So it definitely does show your background. Also, I love you guys. It was great It's great being here, even if I do have to be in the post-credits. Even if I have been banished to the post-credits realm. See you next week.